Okay, so the first step to launching your rapid fire round number one, where you're testing out the personas for your client, is to open up the ad tracking sheet that you guys have a template for. And on the second tab, what you'll see is the tab called rapid fire testing. So the first tab is our funnel outline. Now this is going to get done once we have a clearer understanding of the personas we're going to go after once we activate the funnel. For now, we're interested in this tab, and then the last tab is your tracking. So this is to keep a track of things as you go. So what we want to do here is we basically really want to figure out how much budget we're going to allocate and how many ad sets we can actually split test. So we know that we have a total budget of $200 that is allocated to this round. Which means we don't have a lot of budget to split test too many ad sets. Now this is a hair salon, so it is restricted to a geographical area, which means that's not necessarily a bad thing because honestly, you can't really split test too many things. Whereas if I was working with a client that was nationwide, I could split test a lot more, like lookalikes. I could split test against an interest-based audience. I could split test against blanket marketing. Whereas with this, there's just not much room. Like the audiences are so small that you pretty much have to do blanket marketing for most of them, except we can get away with, we'll do demographic here, that's not interest. You can get away with some demographical targeting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ad sets that we're going to be split testing, and this is the budget I'm allocating to each one of these. This one should be $15. Now when you start to build these, you might find that some of these are not going to work because they're too small. That's okay, just go in this sheet, edit this sheet, and it will tell you how much budget you have. So basically we're spending $75 a day as long as this feeds out properly to the audience, which means that we'll have a rapid fire test for about 2.5 days, right? Because our total budget is $200. Now you can set these up as lifetime budgets as well. My only thing with that is that I find that lifetime budgets don't feed out very well because it really taps into the pacing part of the algorithm. So I prefer daily budgets and then just creating a task internally to remind myself to go in and turn off the rapid fire testing, okay? If you go over budget by $5, $10, that's fine. You can just pull that budget from your next round, right? So this is essentially a way to kind of outline what you're going to be building inside. Now, if we're inside the ad account, you'll see here I've set up the campaign. So I've given it the naming conventions that I was using when I built out that lucid chart, right? So TOF stage 1 personas. This makes it really easy for anyone that needs to go in the account to quickly see what is actually happening here, right? What is what? So make sure you're only setting round 1 under one campaign. Don't go and create all your different ad sets as different campaigns, okay? And then in here you'll see I have set up some of these already. So I've got pretty much most of these ones set up. I'm just missing my maternity one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to duplicate one and edit it, but I'll show you, how this basically works. So I'm going to duplicate this. So you would essentially create an ad set from scratch. You're going to give it the naming convention that makes sense. So here is maternity. And what are we doing here? We're doing demographics. So demographic. And we're going to give it $15 a day. I may need to adjust this depending on how big this audience size is. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I dropped this pin. So I've got the client's postcode somewhere. Here we go. All right, so I've got the client's postcode here. I'm going to basically drop this in right now. Now this is maternity, so people may be willing to drive a little bit further out, so I'm going to drop a pin in the neighboring area. Let's go with that. Okay, and I might tighten this up a bit. There we go. So I'm targeting women. What am I doing here? Women 25 to 35. I might be able to go a bit older here as well. Let's see what this size is. Okay, so you see I have a very small audience here of 19,000 people. I think it should be okay with $15 a day. Sometimes if you put too big of a budget to a small audience, it just stalls the whole thing, which is why. But honestly, if you did like $50 to this audience size, that would probably be a problem. $15 is fine. It may not feed out the whole $15 though, because it is a very small audience. So I just have to be aware of that. And then I'm going to go publish. We're going to leave the placements as is for our rapid fire test. And you don't have to worry about optimization and delivery. Just leave it all to the default for now. So go and put your targeting in here. So you're creating one campaign for your rapid fire test. And then inside of that campaign, you've got your different ad sets. Now that campaign objective is messenger objective, okay? Super important. So I'll show you guys that in a moment because I missed that step. So when you go to click create, just make sure you are clicking on messages, okay? All right, so now we've got our maternity. I need to go in here and obviously change the ad creative because this is not. So let's delete this. And I'm going to edit this. Okay, once I've created the ad, I'm just going to publish this. I'm going to go inside of the ad tracking sheet that we set up for our client. And I'm going to punch in the ad. I'm going to send this off to my team once this is all done to double check. If I don't have anyone on my team to double check the grammar, the spelling on all this creative, I will essentially just give it a day or an afternoon, come back to it when I'm a bit more refreshed, and then go through and double check for that. And then I'll send this off to the client for approval. Now, just make sure that you put everything on pause before the client approves. Okay, so that's really important, guys. Make sure your ads are not live, feeding out budget until your client has approved the creative. So this is essentially how to set up the first rapid fire round. We're using a messenger objective campaign. You're going to go and build out the skeleton inside of this sheet, allocate a budget to it, and then create all your personas, your targeting around that, and then the ad creatives, and then add those ad creatives to the tracking sheet so that you can then send this off to your team for approval, and then the client, and then you're ready to go live once all of that is done.